and I heard a voice. I'm not a mystic. I've never heard it since, but I would die to hear it again. I heard a woman's voice spoken to me, and it was like liquid love pouring over my soul, the most feminine, maternal voice you could possibly imagine. And the voice said to me, Donnie, I'm so happy.
It's my honor to present to you our second speaker this morning, a man who needs very little introduction. Some of you know him from his many best-selling books, specifically his latest best-selling book, The Consecration to St. Joseph, The Wonders of Our Spiritual Father, that spread like the fire of the Holy Spirit throughout parishes across the country. A convert to Catholicism and a member of the Congregation of Marian Fathers of the Immaculate Conception, let's give a big McHenry County welcome to Father Donald Calloway.
All right. Whew, how many of you did the consecration of St. Joseph? Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, that thing really did spread. A lot of people have come up to me and they're like, Father, you must be rich. I'm like, no. I'm in a religious community. I have a vow of poverty, so my superior right now is super stoked. We're making mad money off that book. Going to build a new monastery and everything. So, yeah, that thing is crazy. 18 languages now, like almost 2 million copies sold just in the English version. So all the other ones around the world, it's incredible. And next year, I'm working on right now a graphic novel, a comic book, basically, of St. Joseph. It's going to be so good, and it's for everybody. It's not just like for kids, because it looks like it's for kids, but it's going to have like deep theological stuff related to St. Joseph. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be, I think, epic as well. Okay, so when they invited me to this, you know, I've been a priest 19 years now, and I've got like a ton of talks, man. Right, I can crank out like 20 talks, you know, just press play, and I'll speak to a microphone. I can deliver, you know. And I'm like, what talk do you want me to give? And they're like, your conversion. I'm like, dang it. Again? Right? No, I get it. I understand, right? I'm like, hasn't everybody heard? Go to YouTube, man, right? It's free, you know. But I get it. People haven't heard it, or they need, you know, an injection of hope, or people want to bring their delinquent husbands or children to such events, you know, and give them a spiritual spanking, you know, by Father Calloway. I get it. I understand, right? See, that's what you're expecting. I know. Okay. So that's what I want to talk about. So I am going to talk about myself in this talk, but it's actually not about me. It's about a God who is so madly in love with you and your messy, jacked up, dysfunctional family. Right? Unlike Padre Pio, whose feast we celebrated yesterday, I can't read souls. And I'm so grateful for that. That would totally stink right now. I'd be seeing all of your nastiness, right? Me too, right? I just look in a mirror. But I live here on this planet. I know what's going on. We've all got baggage. We've all got wounds. We've got stuff that we're struggling with, all of us, okay? So what I'm going to talk about is this story of God's mercy and unbelievable love for the most broke, messed up that there is. And that's me. Really and truly. I mean, people come up to me now and they're like, Father, sign my book. Father, take a picture with me. And I'm like, if these people only knew. All right? I want to be a saint. Of course I do. But it's a process. And I got to burn a lot of paperwork from my past if I'm ever going to, you know, I'm in it with you guys. I understand, right? I still struggle. I still make a lot of mistakes. I go to confession a lot. Thank God for confession. So I want to inject hope into you right now in a huge way. In a huge way. So you see me now as a priest, and if you're not familiar with my story, you're probably like, dang, who's this dude, right? He's a kind of radical guy. So what happened? All right, I'm going to show you a picture right now. You're probably going to totally think I'm a narcissist when I show you. I carry a big picture of myself all around the world, okay? I'm praying, you know, pray for me. My pride issues and egotism. Okay, the only reason I'm going to show you this is to illustrate for you in a visual way what I'm about to describe to you, okay? So this was me when I was 18 years old. Before Jesus, okay? Hopefully you can see that. Yeah. But, you know, even back then, I identified as a dude, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, hello. What crazy times we live in, right? So All my girlfriends were jealous because I did have longer hair than they did. And my hair in this picture is actually short, believe it or not. This is one of the few pictures I have from my youth because I'm making certain hand gestures in the majority of them, and I can't show those publicly nowadays. I'm a priest. And my mother confiscated the majority of them as well because I just looked like I was high, and I was. So this is one of the few that I still have. So what in the world happened to get this dude, who's me, right? And people have asked me, is that real hair? Yeah, if you pulled on it, I would have punched you. It was real hair. It wasn't a wig. It took me 8 years to grow my hair that long. How did I get from being this guy to being this guy with one of these around my neck? Okay, being a Catholic priest. It's an incredible story. When I was born, my parents were not Catholic. They were not Christian of any kind. And they were very worldly people. My mother was a very beautiful young lady. And the guys, really kind of followed her around and wanted to be close to her. So she got pregnant when she was 17, had me when she was 18, and I wasn't baptized or anything like that because they didn't believe in these things. And that marriage fell apart rather quickly. Even though my mother was beautiful, my dad, my biological father, was a player. He's out looking for other options, other ladies, after work, going to the bar with his buddies, shooting pool, drinking beer, and, scouting out other possibilities. So that didn't work out. My mother separated from him. She remarried another dude. He was just like dad number one. They separated. They got a divorce. Then my mother remarried a third time, all before I was 10 years old. So I had 3 fathers before I was 10. And none of them were St. Joseph. Maybe that's why I wrote that book, looking for a Joseph. So the third one would end up becoming like a St. Joseph. He's amazing. But he adopted me, my third father. And that's how I got the last name. What's my last name? Yay, you got it, right? You play golf maybe or something. I don't know. So Calloway, I like it. It works for me, because up until I was adopted by my third father, my last name, I have my biological father's last name, which was Croc. Brutal, right? That is, unless it's your last name, it's very nice. No. So I become Calloway, and his parents, my new grandparents, because I have grandparents all over the place with 3 dads, So they said, this poor child has never been baptized. I was 10 years old. And they said, you need to baptize him. You've adopted him. He's got the name now. You need to get him baptized. And my parents weren't into that. And they were like, nah, that's not what we do. But grandparents being grandparents, right? No offense if you're a grandparent. But they just kept nagging, right? Get him baptized. Get him baptized. Get that boy baptized. And my parents are just like, no, it's not what we do. And then finally they were just like, fine, shut up, right? We'll get him baptized. So they went and they found a random church because my grandparents were not Catholic. And they went in Virginia Beach to an Episcopalian church. So kind of close to the Catholic Church, but, not. And they wanted one where they could basically not have any obligations of like preparation or wasting time going to church. Let's just do this thing and get the certificate and shut up the grandparents. So that's what went down. There was no prep. There was nothing, right? We just set up this scheduled thing. And so we went to church one day. I was 10, I remember this. And some dude, like totally weird looking, with like a robe on, I was like, hello, what's up with that, And he poured water over my face inside this building. Nobody was there because it didn't mean anything to my parents. No friends or family were invited to this. No pictures were taken. They didn't even waste film on this event. All they wanted was that 8x11 certificate that I had been baptized to give to the grandparents. So after my baptism, we went outside and we ate donuts, basically. Really. That was my introduction to Christianity. Welcome to the life of grace. No family members invited, no pictures, and here's a glazed donut, So that didn't work out too well for the family. The grandparents got their certificate. They shut up for a while. And then we never went back to church. So we never prayed. We never went to church or anything like that. So then my third father, who was a military officer, we moved like a lot. We started moving all over the place. Ended up out in California, which for me was paradise. Absolutely loved it. Growing up in the early 80s, where music now was visual as well as audible. So, a lot of times when you hear music, it's hard to make out the songs, Rocket Man, you don't know what he's saying, right? So, but you're rocking it out, But then when you see the song, the video, you're like, oh, hot for teacher. Hello, yeah, she is, You can see it now with MTV. Music became visual now. And for me growing up, my generation, all that stuff was in Southern California. So I absolutely loved being in Southern California. But then after being there for a while, we moved again. And when my dad, when I say dad now, I mean my stepfather, third one, he says, we're going to move again, and my duty station is Japan. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to Japan. No way. No, that's just not going to happen. Virginia Beach, Los Angeles, San Diego, now Japan, nope, not happening. But what was I going to do? I had no choice. So we went, and as soon as we got there, I looked for the kids who were bad. And today everybody's like, oh, how dare you? You can't say that about people. I'm like, hello. There's so much today. We're so afraid. We're so politically correct, and we just want to, I can't say anything because, if somebody identifies as a cat and meows, they got problems, okay? This is a serious condition that probably needs some serious therapy, right? But back then, we didn't even have that stuff. But you could tell the kids that were wearing the Iron Maiden shirt or the girls who basically were wearing dental floss, they were crying out for attention. That girl got daddy wounds, like big time. She's just looking for some affirmation. I'll gladly give it to her to get what I want out of this dealio. So I looked for the kids that were, messed up, easy to find, and I got involved in really bad stuff. And I was 15 at that point. And we were supposed to be there for 3 years, tour of duty for 3 years. I ran away from home on the big island of Honshu in Japan and caused international scene. I got wrapped up in the Yakuza, which is the Japanese mafia, at 16 years old, and was running money and drugs to different casinos and everything. It was nuts. I would have like 1 million yen on me at a time. That's not $1 million. Sounds like it though, doesn't it? But it's not. But I would have like $10,000 in American currency on me at a time. Insane for a 16-year-old boy. And Japanese girls that were twice my age, just, oh my gosh, it was nuts. And if you can do the Google searches, you'll still read about some of these things, about those episodes. This is before, all the stuff we have today. But there's still articles about them searching for the American military dependent in Japan who caused an international scene. That was me. And that's when I was growing my hair long and the whole thing. What I didn't know during that whole craziness of that was that my mom, by the way, my mom is almost 100% Italian. Remember, Calloway is my adopted name. My mother's maiden name, Lucida Bianco. How in the world was this woman not Catholic, right? But she wasn't. For some reason, when her relatives came through Ellis Island, and all this, they checked Catholicism at the door, and it didn't follow through. So she, though, had a friend in Japan, a Filipino woman, a Filipina, right? Have you met these people? Yeah. They are hardcore Catholic. I mean, wowzers, like unbelievable. Special forces of God. That's what I call these people, as a culture. So she had a friend who was Filipino, and this woman said to my mother, now I'm going to imitate them, not to offend anybody. So if you're Filipina, please, salamat po to you and your people. I love you, okay? But this is what this Filipino woman said to my mother at the time. And I would find this out much later. You need to go talk to Father. You got to talk to the Catholic priest, right? That's how it sounds to a white boy. So my mom is like, why? I'm not. Why are you telling me to go talk to a Catholic? Because everybody knew the situation over there of I had run away with another military kid, and we're causing the scene. So my mother was just like, fine, I'll go and talk to a Catholic priest. So my mom talked to a military chaplain in Japan, and that priest changed my mom's life in a huge way. He started telling her about the Eucharist. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you don't have life. My mom was on medication for depression, anxiety, and all kind of other things. Her maternal heart was shattered because of what I had done. I was gone in Japan. They didn't know if they'd find me alive. He told my mom about the Eucharist, about the Virgin Mary, about the saints, about suffering that can be used for good, and all these things. And it was like he just turned on the Catholic DNA in my mom's Italian soul, on. And she fell in love with it. She brought her husband, dad number 3, into the faith. And then my half-brother Matthew. But they couldn't become Catholic yet because my mom had to leave the country while they were still searching for me. While this was a long process. I was gone for a long time. So my mother and my half-brother no longer even lived in the country, and I didn't even know that. It's not like I was out at night, after going to the Budokan and rocking it out with, bands that were coming over, because I looked like I was in the band at that time, and just wild parties, crazy stuff. I wasn't calling my parents at night, how was your day? I didn't want to see these people again for the rest of my life. So I had no idea that my mother was no longer in the country. So eventually they apprehended me. I got caught, thrown in a brig, the military jail. I escaped. They locked down the base. I was able to get over the fence, and then they caught me eventually in a sewer. And then I was kicked out of the country, literally kicked out of the country. handcuffed to the plane. It was a Mac flight, if you're familiar with military stuff. It's basically a cargo plane with web seating on the side. They handcuffed me to the web seating and to one of two MPs, military police officers, who escorted me from Yokosuka to Honolulu on a military plane. And then they put me on a commercial flight, I think it was American Airlines, from Honolulu to LAX, escorted by the two MPs. And it was a sight to behold. Oh, my gracious. And you know what's amazing to me? There's a dude about 5 years ago that actually had a reconversion to Catholicism himself, and he was stationed in the military at that time, and he was flying back home through Honolulu, and he remembered some long-haired kid being escorted by MPs in the airport. And then we published this magazine called The Marian Helper. It was in that issue. He read it, and he was like, "That was you? I was there," you know? And he wasn't a devout Catholic at that time either, but he said at that time he actually offered up a prayer for this poor long-haired freak that was being escorted through the airport by the military police. That was me. We've since met up and talked, and it's amazing, right? And it's good because I need people to verify this, because people are like, "Father, this story is like wild, you know? Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not making this junk up, dude," right? This actually happened. So we get to LAX, they take the handcuffs off, and they release me into the custody of my father. My first instinct is like, "Thanks for the ride, suckers," right? I never wanted to go to Japan in the first place, right? I'm back in LA, baby, you know? And then I'm like, where am I going to go? All my friends are military dependents. They're probably living in Germany and halfway, around the world. So I went with my dad on another flight to Pennsylvania, where my mother had relocated, and she'd been living there for several months. And the agreement was, in Japan, I wasn't 18. I hadn't done anything on American soil to be incarcerated in the United States. Japan just wanted me out of their country. So I had to go to a rehab. So I went to my first rehab. It was in near Latrobe, Pennsylvania. It's called New Beginnings at Cove Forge. You can look it up. It's still there. So I was there for 3 months. I didn't get better in the rehab. I got worse. Now, I don't want to scandalize you or say anything negative about rehabs, although there are studies that have been done about secular rehabs. Do you know what the failure rate is of most modern secular rehabs? Like 92%. Seriously, this ain't Father Calloway making this up for dramatic effect. This is the facts. Why? Because it's a Band-Aid to a spiritual problem. They can't talk about sin because they'll lose their accreditation and everybody will be fired, right? So they just try and Band-Aid it over, like, don't, snort your sugar, and let's meet for group sessions and affirm the person to your left and whatnot. Let's go climb on the trees and do team building exercises to learn trust, fall into the arms of your teammates and build confidence, Right. That's what corporate America does too. It's a joke. You still hate that dude in the next cubicle next to you after that weekend is over of swinging like monkeys on trees, It's a waste of money for the most part. So that's what I learned in the rehab. I didn't get better, I got worse. So afterwards, I went, to meetings, trying to get my little chip, to show people I was sober. I didn't go there with good intentions. I went there to hook up with Linda, who was like, "Hi, I'm Linda, I'm an alcoholic." I'm like, "What's up, Linda?" Hello, they're pointing them out for me now. This is easy. This is great, So it was a disaster. But what happened during that time? My mom and my dad became uber Catholic. Like super Catholic, man. My mom had turned their house into like a parish. You want to talk about not having enough already having enough statues in your house, right? Oh my goodness. My mom had statues all over the place. And one in particular, this creature-looking thing, winged and everything, ripped like a six-pack, little one, medium, gigantic ones. And he had like a spear stabbing like a snake in the face. And it was all over the house. And she would put these things in my pants pockets because I would come through town occasionally. She was trying to convert me through osmosis, touch something holy, And I would read this thing and it would say St. Michael the Archangel. I'm like, Mom's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. This is a cult. This is Jim Jones. They're going to drink Kool-Aid in Uganda and off themselves following little green man to planet, Zeno. What is this? Catholicism is stupid. It is antiquated, outdated, women-hating, unscientific morons, is what I thought about Catholicism. This is what I learned from the Discovery Channel and growing up, pretty much all my teachers before I dropped out of school. This is what they said. This is stupid. I remember specifically in California, a science teacher slamming Christianity to the class and saying things like, why would God, as these Christians say, become one of us when we're going to leave him in the dust of history. I mean, we came from starfish, went through monkeys, now we're Homo erectus, and we're moving on. We're going to become something after this. We're going to leave humanity in the dust. Too bad, Jesus, that you became one of us, because we're going to leave you in the dust of history. And to me, that made total sense. I'm like, totally. That's like God becoming a starfish or a monkey and then a human. Dude, we're moving on, right? It just made so much sense to me. And this is a guy who had a PhD, from some prestigious American university. So I was like, Catholicism is just, they're ignorant people. These are extremely ignorant people. And so when my mom and my dad were like I couldn't stay in their house even. When I would swing through town, it was like I could be there one night maybe, and that was it. They were just so religious. Well, that didn't work out well for me. I ended up on the streets of Philadelphia, smoking crack, doing acid and mushrooms, and you name it, following a band called the Grateful Dead on a Volkswagen bus. I got a tattoo on my shoulder called Steal Your Face. Was super into the Dead. Interesting to say that now, right? The Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia was like my God, and every drop he squeezed out, of a note, I would like, take me there, Jerry, right? Let's go. And we danced with the Bears, and it was nuts. I lost my identity, and I thought I was happy. I thought I had found happiness, but I never did. I was always still searching. So I woke up in Philadelphia, smoked like OD'd on crack, went to another rehab, also a psychiatric unit called Charter Fairmont Institute. Look it up. It's still there. I was in that lockdown padded facility for 3 months. I couldn't run away from that one like I did the first one. They recaptured me in the first one, put me back in. But this one, there was no option to run away. And all they did for me for the 3 months that I was there was, look, here's the medication in this little Dixie cup here. This is going to make you better. I resisted, and they're like, don't fight the program. You're resisting the program. I'm like, it's not working for my roommate who's like lost his mind. And if that wasn't the answer, they would just up the milligrams or try a different, form of something or other. That was the method, period. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not buying it. I didn't have the answers. I didn't want any answers. But I was like, I'm not taking your little Kool-Aid here with these meds, okay? I got problems. I like to smoke me some weed and be with the ladies. But I'm sorry. I'm just not taking your little meds here, your little purple pills and such. So I didn't. So they were like, he's not cooperating, he's not going to make it. So I got out, and sure, I didn't. And it got worse. I ended up busted in Louisiana as soon as I turned 18, shoplifting from a store called Piggly Wiggly. I wish I had something more manly on my criminal resume. But anyway, at any rate. So do you have Piggly Wigglies up here? Do you really? I thought that was just a southern thing. Okay. So I got busted. I didn't go to my court date in Louisiana, so now I'm wanted in Louisiana. It's crazy. So me and this other dude stole a car, and we're just driving all over the place. And eventually I go and I meet my biological father, Papa Croc, remember? Daddy Croc. My mom always said to me, avoid that man. He's bad news. So I'm like, well, now would be a good time to get reacquainted with this guy, because he was like a hillbilly in West Virginia. And man, if you think you know Southern redneck, you do not, okay? Until you go to the backwoods of West Virginia, my friends. I think they speak English. It's like, wow, right? So no offense. These are my people, so I can tear into them a little bit, right? I met my biological father. We did not get along. He was straight out of like Deliverance. He was like, wow, right? And I was long-haired. I tried to smoke his corn in his field and everything, We didn't hit it off at all. He didn't even want me in his house, but he said I could live on his land. I told him I was running from the law, and he's like, I understand, because he used to get in trouble with the law. So I went on his property and lived there, running from the police. Eventually, my supplies run out. I got nowhere to go. He won't let me in his house. He's got a new wife and kids. I discovered I had new half-brothers and half-sisters, didn't even know it. I go to my mom's house in Pennsylvania, and guess what they're doing now? My mom and dad. They're going to church every day. She's like Sister Lachita, and it's like that's unbelievable. It was like a nunnery practically. It was like a convent, and I'm like, this is insane. Who does this? I've heard of people going like on Sundays. I've seen them people on TV begging for money and for their wife's makeup and such. I've seen them people. What are you doing? I can't every day. This is nuts. And they enrolled my brother in a Catholic school, which in my uninformed mind meant that, penguins were beating them across the face with rulers. That's Catholic education to me, right? Indoctrinated. Believe this, don't do this. Bad boy, that's what I thought. So I'm like, this is nuts. I couldn't stay there, left again. My life was insane. Eventually, at one point, I rock bottomed. I mean, I'd rock bottomed a lot, but at this point, I'm even thinking about taking my life. And a lot of my friends did that. I have friends who are gone. They checked out, taking their own life, either through a or just taking so much acid that they're here, but they're not here. Okay, they are dancing with the bears. They drool on their chin all day. They're gone. So I'm thinking about my options. I am at my parents' house one night, and I'm thinking about checking out. How do I do it? I don't want to be here anymore. I got no goals, ambitions, career options. I dropped out of school. I got nothing. I want nothing. And as I sat there, the phone stops ringing. My buddy's calling me to let's go party and everything. And so I go out into the hallway, and I'm looking for a National Geographic. Occupy my mind and get away from the silence by looking at a book of monkeys or, Viking conquest or something. So I go out and I see a yellow book, right? National Geographic. Yeah, they're yellow. But this wasn't a National Geographic. It said this, very strange. The Queen of Peace visits Medjugorje, right? They don't freak out on me, right? I'm not the Pope or the Magisterium. I don't say these things are true or not. I'm just telling you historically what happened to me. It's like a lightning rod. I mention that, and people are like, you're a false priest. It's amazing. Well, people, nuts, man. So I'm like, what is this? I thought it was like something my parents were super into. So I'm like, I'll check this out. So I go into the room, I look at the pictures, and I look at these kids on their knees, like with a pile of necklaces on a table, and they're looking up into the air like they had just smoked a big old spliff, right? They were like, oh, hey, I'm like, what is this? And so I read the picture, the caption below the pictures, and evidently it was their names, and one of them, I thought that girl's name was Marijuana. I did. I've since met her, and I told her that. I said, I thought your name was Marijuana, because Mariana. I'm like, no, Duncan, Marijuana. So I'm like, okay. So I didn't put the book down immediately, because I'm like, what is this? I was into things like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster, so I'm thinking this is what this is. It's like a specter. It's like a ghost, whatever these kids are talking about here. So I start reading the book. I didn't understand, war going on, whatever. Chapter 2. So I keep reading that, and they're talking about some beautiful woman. And I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, all right, where are we going here? So I keep reading. Then they start talking. She comes with a clap of thunder and a smell of roses, and they fall on their knees because she's so beautiful. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, that's impressive. Who is? I can't see her. Where is she? There were statues and stuff, and I'm like dumb. I know she's not a statue, so I'm like, where is she? Like, anybody pop out a Polaroid of this mystical woman here? What's going on? But there were none. But I was so attracted to the beauty that was being described to me that I couldn't stop reading the book. And so I kept reading the book, and then allegedly, this woman starts talking to these kids. And I'm like, what? I mean, that's next level. It's like, okay. And then she starts talking about God. I don't do God, okay? I mean, and I'm tempted to put down the book. I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm sorry, this is not true. And I'm like, I can't put the book down, though. I'm so fascinated by this woman. Then she starts talking about Jesus, very specific. A lot of people, you can be comfortable with God. When your freaked out relatives come over at Thanksgiving, you can say a prayer to God, and not everybody's going to run out of the house. But if you make it real specific and start talking about Jesus, then it's like, oh, you're a holy roller. Who do you think you are, right? And you get into a family fight right there at Thanksgiving. It takes it to the next level. So she started talking about Jesus, and I'm like, oh, whoa. I've heard about this dude. He's the great dork maker in the sky. Takes away all fun, turns you into a bunch of unscientific idiots, right? That's what I thought. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this stuff. And then she starts saying she's the mother of Jesus. What? Myths don't have mothers. To me, Jesus was a myth. Jesus was as real as Scooby-Doo and Popeye and Bugs Bunny. Because when I grew up, the TV was my babysitter. And between, Scooby-Doo and Bugs Bunny and Popeye, there'd be some preacher man come on TV, really hard up for cash, and he'd be like, be healed in the name of Jesus, be healed, right? And he claimed that some dude walked on water and rose from the dead. But I had enough brains to know that people don't come back from the dead. Like, that's a cartoon, dude. Like, that coyote has died 1,000,000 times. But you got to be really, really desperate for a real job if you're telling people that people come back from the dead. So that's what I thought. So I'm like, a mother? Myths don't have Scooby-Doo ain't got a mom. Papa ain't got a mother. Jesus has a mother. What is this stuff? So it's new to me. That's how ignorant I was. So I'm like, okay, what is going on here? So I read the whole book in one night. It's not a small book. I read the whole thing. I didn't understand most of it. My mom gets up in the morning. My dad's out at sea, actually, on an aircraft carrier. Here I am, long hair guy, right? Duplex. She's coming down the stairs, and she's about 5 steps in front of me, and I have the book, and I say to her, Mom, I couldn't even say it. I was about to, say something churchy, right? The ultimate death. Okay? I couldn't do it. But I felt I had to so bad. So I was like, Mom, I got to. And she got mad. She's half asleep still. So she's above me and she goes, Donnie, what are you trying to tell me? And I said, Mom, I got to talk to a Catholic priest, okay? You know what she said to me? My mom affirms this whole thing. She looks right at me and she goes, yeah, right. So I thought I was joking. I showed her the book. I said, what the heck is this stuff? Is this what you guys are into? Mom, I'm freaking out. What is this stuff? She goes, did you read that? I'm like, Mom, I stayed up all night reading this thing. And she didn't say a thing. She ran to the phone, 6 o'clock in the morning, punched in, digits, and all I heard was a convo between my mom and some dude on the other end that went like this. Yes, Father, I know. I'm sorry. I know it's early. Father, this is Lachita. Father, my son, can you meet with him now? Father, please. Now, priests are human beings, as my brothers will affirm, right? We got to get up and put our pants on, have a cup of coffee, take a bathroom break, normal. So he's like, no. He's like, how about 8 a.m., She's like, no, Father, now. That didn't work. So she calls another one. He's like, 9 o'clock. She's like, no. So I knew what she was trying to do. And so I interrupted her. I said, Mom, isn't there one of those? She knew exactly what I meant. At that time, they had moved, and they were living on Norfolk Naval Air Station, largest naval facility in the world. And there was a Catholic church, a chapel, right inside the main gate. I knew that because when I came to visit them, I would walk on the other side of the street to avoid it. Okay? Seriously. So I knew it was there. I never even noticed the name. So I said, Mom, isn't there one of those? She said, yes, Donnie, run. And I did. I threw the book down the hallway. I bolted out the door, psychedelic. You could have got a contact high if you stood close enough to me. I was like, I had marijuana resin all over me. It was insane, my life. You have no idea. So I run to this thing. I get there out of breath. My capacity is nil, I look up and I finally see the name of this thing. It's still there too. Our Lady of Victory Chapel. How perfect, right? Military naval chapel. So I'm like, oh my, wow. But I'm not going in. Donnie, don't do church. I'm not going. No way. Main gate, traffic, this can't be public. So I'm like, all right. I see another building that says chaplain's office. So I go over there a little after 6 a.m., right? Military, everybody's awake and doing their thing. I go in there and I am socially raw. I have no skills of communication at that point. I'm a long-haired freak in the hallway, opened the front door, and I yelled out to the corridor, Catholic priest! I freaked that joint out, okay? One, I don't look like I belong on a military installation. Hello, right? So all of a sudden, heads are popping out of cubicles with their little white Navy uniform on, a cup of coffee, and like, oh my. And they're talking among themselves. They think I can't hear it. And I'm like, hello, because they're like, I don't want to talk. Do you want to talk to him? I don't know. I don't know, right? And I'm like, I see you, right? Somebody. So one dude has the courage to come over to me, and he says, can I help you? And I'm like, yes, I need a Catholic priest. And he's like, who are you? I'm like, you ain't got to worry about that, bro. Give me a Catholic priest. So he goes away, comes back with some other military officer. Now, I don't know what a Catholic priest is supposed to look like, but in my mind, Moses, right? Ben-Hur kind of dude, I don't know, like really rustic, barefoot, long beard or something. And I'm thinking he's going to do something to me to heal me, be healed, right? That's church. So he comes over to me and he's like, hi, I'm Father John. And I'm like, dude, what? And he goes, you asked for a Catholic priest. I'm like, are you a priest? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, all right, dude, get it out. And he's just staring at me. He had a cup of coffee, and he's like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, get it out of me. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, dude, that woman in the book, man, she said, if I want happiness, I have to go to a Catholic priest and confess my sins. That was what she said. He goes, oh, confession? And I'm like, that's what she said. He's like, okay, great. So we go to his little cubicle, and he's scared. He pulled his chair like halfway out into the hallway, right? Just in case I pulled out a 38 and capped that sucker, right? Because that's what I look like, a criminal, So I get it. So I got me one of these dudes. I think he's legit. He doesn't look like one, but I'm thinking, okay. So I start to tell him filthy, disgusting, perverse things I've done in my life because I'm thinking those are probably sins. So bad, I can't even look at the man. I'm staring at the carpet, and I'm like, all right, dude, I did this. I did this. I did this. Oh, my gosh. And I just keep saying this, and I don't hear anything. So at one point, I look up, and he's like, and I was like, what? And he goes, whoa. He goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. When's the last time you went to confession? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. And he goes, well, you're a Catholic, right? And I'm like, oh, heck no. And he got a little mad. He got a little upset. He was like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait, you can't do this. This is a sacrament. You have to be a Catholic. And I'm like, dude, the woman said, and he's like, what woman? I'm like, bro, Jesus has a mother. That dude has a mom. You know about this? And he's like, okay. And he's like, okay, look, I got a really busy day. So he pulled one of these moves on me. I was so used to this. He goes, I'm aware of the time. I'm like, bro, 6:30 in the morning, homie. Where you got to go? Don't. I've been down that road. People ain't got time for me, the long-haired freak. I know the game you're playing here. What you got to do? So he goes, no, I have to go celebrate Mass. I'm not Catholic. I don't know what this man is trying to tell me. He's like, I need to go celebrate Mass. Do you know what that is? In my mind, I'm thinking he's going to go rejoice and be super stoked about neutrons and protons. He's going to celebrate gravity, man. yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. So he's like, you don't know what that is? I'm like, dude. So he goes, okay, do you know where the chapel is? I said, yeah, I saw it. He goes, go over there, go in. I'll be over in a little bit. When I'm done, we'll meet back here and we'll talk, okay? And I'm like, you serious? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, you're not going to call the cops? Because I just told him sinful things, but also some criminal stuff. I'm thinking that's his way of getting me out, like 911. Yo, get over here quick. We got a total criminal in here. So I'm like, you're not going to bust me? He's like, no, I'm not. No. And I go, all right. So I start to leave, and he goes this. Before I left the building, he goes, oh, wait, one more thing. When you go in, sit in the back, would you? That's what he said to me, right? So he's now deceased, but we used to talk for many years about all this, how it went down in the original conversations we had. Unbelievable. So I go over there. I wait for a break in traffic. I open the church door. This can't be public. I don't want nobody seeing me going into a church. I go in. The door slams behind me like somebody just WD-40 that sucker. It was like a shotgun blast. I thought I was like dead, you know. I go in. I turn around. Guess who's in the church? Only 5 people right by the front door. You know who they were? 5 Filipinos. Oh, Lord, right? Took one to take down my mom. I got a whole army up in here, right? Oh, my gosh. You couldn't get me to the back fast enough. I went to the back, and I sat down in the pew, long-haired freak, and I'm looking. I'm like, I can't believe this. Nobody else in here? Okay. Just 5 Filipino women up front. And then, if you know anything about Filipino culture, what I'm about to describe to you is verifiable and true. Trust me. Okay, it's a very matriarchal culture. The men are pretty much passive. They're just like, okay, right? The women run the show. That's just how it works. So, sure enough, here's a little pocket of Filipinas, and there's a leader. Self-appointed, right? Nobody designated her to do this job, but she just tells everybody else what to do. So, because I know, I've been to the Philippines many times. You know, I love the Filipino people, but this is just how it is. So she goes up to some table, fires up 2 candles on this table. There's a boat hanging from the ceiling because it's a naval chapel. She goes back to her pew. She pulls out a necklace from her purse. That's what I thought. They pull out a necklace, imitating, the Mother Superior here. They pull out their necklaces, and they start some Tagalog English incantation to the boat. That's what I heard. White boy in the back, I don't know Tagalog. All I heard was this. Okay, no offense if you're Filipino. This is what I heard. Hail Mary. What in the world? Gibberish, unintelligible. And then the other 4 reciprocated by saying, Holy Mary, Amen. And this was like, they were moving. It was like sold to the highest bidder. It was like, what is this? And then Filipino women, bold, man. This leader, Vi was her name, I would find out later. She turns around, holds up her necklace, jingles it in the air to me, long-haired freak in the back. And she goes, young man, would you like to pray the next decade, please? Next decade. Okay, I dropped out of school. It's true. But decade means 10 years. I have no other definition. So I'm looking at her like a deer in headlights. I'm like, what? And she's like, the second sorrowful mystery. I have no idea. And I'm literally thinking I've walked into some Filipina coven. These people are witches. They're doing something against the church in here. And when that priest comes in, they're going down, right? I'm thinking they don't know he's coming. I know he's coming, but they don't know he's coming, and it's going down. So I'm like, So they carried on with this thing flying through this, and then the priest comes in. Same door I came in. But he's dressed different. And over there, he was a military officer with all of his stuff. Now he was dressed like a hippie, a robe on with a flower on the front. And he comes in and he's like, morning. He seems to be cool with them. I'm like, I want to tell him, I'm like, ooh, like, you got witches in here, bro. Like, I want to tell him, but I can see he's going to be doing something. He's going to do some church stuff. So he starts doing stuff, and it was horrible. You ever been to a Catholic church where the microphones don't work? Right? This is what I heard homie up front doing. In the name of the Spirit. What? It's like Charlie Brown, the Lord be with you. What in the world, right? I couldn't understand them. Now I can't even say, he's white. I can't even understand this dude. So he's doing stuff, I don't know what he's doing. Then they get on their knees for some reason. He bends over and picks up a little white circle. And then there was a microphone on the table, on the altar. But I didn't know it was an altar. He picks up that little white circle and he says, and the microphone there worked, thank God. But this dude said this. I heard this. Take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body. And he held it up. And I'm like, you a lunatic, bruh. You a straight up lunatic. That dude just said that that's his body and we got to eat it. Think it through. I'm like, and then he showcased it like, ta-da, What? And the women, they're all into it. Yeah, they're focused on what he's doing. I'm thinking, you're a nut, bro. And then you know what happened? I'm not Padre Pio. I'm not a mystic. I heard a voice. I heard a voice. It wasn't spoken to my ear. It was spoken to me as though my whole being were an ear. And the voice said to me, nobody else was in that church except that dude, me, and those 5 Filipino women. The voice said to me, worship. You know what happened next? When I was going through seminary, I asked, Lord, how am I going to explain this to people? And in prayer one day, it came to me like, this is what happened to me. I was injected with knowledge. What that man had in his hands and what the voice had just told me, I knew that he had God. I didn't know Blessed Sacrament, Holy Communion, Eucharist. I didn't know all that language. I knew he had God. He put down God. He picked up a really sweet-looking medieval goblet. That's what it looked like to me, the chalice. And he said, take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is my blood. And he held it up. I heard the same voice, worship. I knew what that man had was God. I didn't understand it, but I knew it was there. He put down God, and then he said some other stuff. Then the women, this was amazing, because I just heard the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life. To this day, I've never heard anything like it. Nothing compares. I was about to see the most amazing thing that I would ever see in my life. Those women got up. That dude came down, and he had God in his hand, somehow on like a little plate or something. I didn't know terminology. And he said to each one of them, one by one, the body of Christ. And I watched that man put God inside them. They stuck out their tongue, and he put God on their tongue. What the voice said to me was true. He didn't say, my body, my body. He said the body of Christ. And then he got the chalice, and he said the blood of Christ, and they consumed it. They drank it. Do you know what happened to me? I didn't hear any voices at that point, but I got injected. I thought I was going to detonate. I knew where I was. I knew I'd been here. Not in a church, no. Do you know how many things I put on my tongue? Little Liquid Lucy. Looked awfully familiar to what they were taking. So I could dance with the bears with Jerry and company? Many times. Very similar. And everything was similar. It was almost like that was a stage. And here we were looking at what was going on, and they were giving us something. How much liquid did I consume in my life looking for happiness, for meaning, where love never fades away? And here it was, for free. In a Catholic church. I thought, there is no way. My friends are going to think I'm totally nuts. Everybody's going to think I have completely lost it. There is no way that this can be true. Why did they not tell me this in the rehabs? Why did I not learn this in the education system? There's no way that this institution that I've hated my whole life contains the truth. I went to that priest after that mass and told him what happened and that I heard a voice twice. That didn't go over well. He was like, okay. I'm like, dude, I know, I hear you. I'm not having a flashback from the acid days. I'm telling you, dude, I heard a voice, bro, and you made God. And then afterwards, you went into some gold box with a red candle next to it. And did you not put God in that box? He was like, the tabernacle? I'm like, I don't know, dude. The box. He's like, yes. I'm like, oh my gosh. He's still over there. Yes. Oh my gosh, dude. And it makes so much sense to me that why those women were on their knees. And oh my gosh, dude. No way, no way. He was overwhelmed. He said, look, I don't know what to do here. I got a whole day ahead of me. I'm going to give you some stuff. Go home, okay? Come back tomorrow. He gave me a crucifix from his wall. It had been there for so long, the dust still had the cross form on the wall. He says, take this. I'm like, are you serious? He gave it to me. He went over and took a big painting of Jesus, Sacred Heart image, off his wall and said, here, take this. And then he went over to another wall and he took off a huge portrait of his grandpa. Random, right? I'm like, okay, I didn't, thanks. Some dude, pudgy, looked like he'd eaten one too many cookies with a little white hat on. No idea who this dude is, right? So I'm like, Jesus, and Grandpa, whatever. So I go back to the house, and I hang up Jesus, and Grandpa in the room. I didn't have a bedroom at my parents' house. It was a storage area where when I was in town, I would sleep on a love seat in the room. So I ripped down the big Bob Marley poster I had, smoking a big old blunt, right? And all the other stuff I had, all the Mrs. January, February, and March issues in the floorboards, my resin scrapers from the sink screens and all that. Everywhere I had all my little items, right? I threw it all away instinctively. My mom testifies to this. I went into the kitchen, I got 5 big black hefty bags, and I threw away everything. My clothes, my Grateful Dead music, everything went in the trash. And I threw it out the front door, not even into the garbage bin. I heaved it out the front door. I went into the room, I hung these items up, and I was like, I'm not going to jack this up. I am not going to mess this up. One phone call from some pretty girl or some dude who's got an 8-ball, I'm out. I am not strong. There's no way. So I sat there, and I'm like, what? What do I do? What do I do here? What do I do? I got that book. I looked at them kids, and I was like, okay, fake it till you make it, basically. I did what they did. I got on my knees, and I tried to pray. That was next level for me. I'm about to talk to somebody that I can't see. I've either just lost my mind or I've got religion. And so I tried to talk to Jesus. I got on my knees, pulled out my dresser drawer, and there was the picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus that was above it. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, all right, I actually believe that you're real. And you're not the poster, duh, but you're God. I expected him to be like, right, little filthy perv, you're dead, lake of fire, right? That's what I had always thought about Jesus with the preachers on TV. You're going to hell, sinners. So the gesture was not like that. It was a heart on fire with a gesture like this and the eyes. Oh my gosh, the eyes. I lost it. I started to cry like a human being can't cry. It was a gift. Tears were flowing. My chin was like a water fountain. It's what I call divine detox. What the rehabs could not do, all he wanted from me was acknowledgement of who he is and that I need him. I'm broke. I'm a sinner. I got problems. And I cried out. That's rehab, baby. That's what the Catholic Church is. The best rehab for the nations, and it's free. It's incredible. So, do you know how long that lasted? And you won't be here all day, don't worry. So, do you know how long that, because I got to fly out of here. So, almost all day on my knees crying. My mom testifies to this. Remember, I only got back to the house, it was like not even 7:30. All day. The sun had gone down. I was still on my knees. I was oblivious there was even a world around me. It was divine detox, but it was also, I went into the honeymoon chamber with God. He ravished my soul. It was unbelievable, the sweetness of his mercy and love. I got up from that experience. I laid down in the love seat because I was like, I'm going to go talk to that priest. He said, come back tomorrow. Then you know what happened? I pray this never happens to you, but you may need it to happen to you. Maybe your son or daughter needs it to happen to you. Maybe your husband needs it to happen to him. Guess who came into the room? Satan. Yep. I didn't buy into that stuff, Lucifer, the devil. Come on, please, right? I was all about the culture that dresses our children up like Lucifer and the devil and witches and sends them to the neighbors to get candy once a year. Good times, right? I was, along with everybody else in our culture, that back in the day when we had Blockbusters and stuff, you go there and you buy a horror flick for your family and get some Twizzlers and popcorn and watch demons basically eat souls. Family night. I didn't buy into Lucifer and the devil. That was some myth, again, that, people created to scare people into giving them your cash. But all of a sudden, there was a creature manifesting itself in my room. I wasn't a devil worshiper. I never went to some satanic pentagram service and slashed a chicken's throat and sprinkled blood on myself. I never did anything like that. but I didn't need to. I used to listen to music that talked about running with the devil or 666 number of the beast. I will return and possess your soul and you will burn. I used to listen to albums called the Ultimate Sin album. You didn't even want to know what he was talking about. All that stuff, the things that I used to watch and entertain myself with, foul, disgusting. The devil came back to take what he thought was his own. And what was I going to do? Punch the devil? Take a swing at Lucifer? Please. I'm made from dust. This arm ain't going to do dink against the devil. Physically, I am no match for a fallen angel. And I knew it. And I was terrified. I thought I was lost forever. You know what I did? In my soul, I gathered this like cry, and from my soul, I screamed into heaven, Mary! Because I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. You know what happened next? The devil was annihilated. I'm talking just completely obliterated from that room, and I heard a voice. I'm not a mystic. I've never heard it since, but I would die to hear it again. I heard a woman's voice spoken to me, and it was like liquid love pouring over my soul, the most feminine, maternal voice you could possibly imagine. And the voice said to me, Donnie, I'm so happy. Nobody calls me Donnie but my mom. That's diminutive form of my name. It's only for my mom. Who is this? Who was this? My mom is not here in the room. She's over in the kitchen somewhere doing whatever. It was my mom, a mother I never knew I had, the mother of Jesus. By calling me Donnie, she's saying to me that she's my mother. I went to sleep that night like a little baby tucked up against his mother's breast, safe, secure, not even Satan could touch me because I was in the arms of Mary. I got up the next morning. I went to that priest, told him what happened, freaked that dude out. But we began a conversation. I immediately, day 2, went and cut my hair. I had long hair down to my waist at that point, okay? I went in to get it cut, and the lady didn't even want to cut it. She's like, oh, are you sure? I'm like, off, all of it. And she was hesitant. I mean, she was literally shaking, cutting it off, and there it fell on the floor. You know what happened after that? I lost all my coolness. I was a dork, and it was awesome. I became a fool for Christ. Like Samson, you could say, when I lost my hair, I lost everything. All my strength was gone. I was no longer a chick magnet. Girls weren't attracted to me anymore. Done. Bonds that I couldn't cut, gone. Just completely gone. I got a job. I dressed like a normal human being. I cleaned up my language. I started going to church every day. I wasn't receiving communion because I wasn't Catholic. But when I saw them receiving, oh my goodness, it was unbelievable. I went every single day. And I started to pray the rosary. I was decked out with brown scapular, blue scapular, green scapular. I was like Mr. T, you know, it was like, boom, like 5 pounds of devotionals around my neck, you know. I pitied a fool. You know, it was crazy. I mean, I looked like a freak. I'll be honest with you. I did. I went a little overboard, you know. But the Filipino ladies took me under their arm. They got me praying the Stations of the Cross. They told me who Grandpa was, you know, John Paul II. And I was so madly in love. You know, when you're in love, when you're young, you're like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up, right? That's how I was with Jesus. When at the end of the day, when they had to close the church doors, I was like, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. And I would be at church in the morning before the Filipinos. That is radical behavior for a white boy, you know? Because when you're in love, you do crazy stuff. I couldn't get enough. And then I'd go to work, my lunch hour, I wouldn't even eat. I started fasting on bread and water on Wednesdays and Fridays, and that was prayer squared. You want to grow in the spiritual life? Fast. Oh my goodness, you will grow by leaps and bounds. And it was just incredible what was happening to me. And so I enrolled in RCIA classes. My baptism was valid from the Episcopalian Church, right? I wasn't baptized in, you know, the Mother, Daughter, and Eternal Spirit or something. It was Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, so it was valid. And so I became Catholic. And then, we'll wrap it up here, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, what do you want from my life, Lord? I am so madly in love with you. I'm crazy in love with you. I'll go door to door until your second coming and tell people about you and your mother. Is that what you want me to do? I'll do it. The priest, I told him that, and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, dude, the Mormons do this junk. Why can't we do this junk? I don't get it, right? These people go around with their little white shirt on a bicycle. Why can't we do this? He's like, well, okay, but, you know, let's pray about it. So I keep praying. And then I kind of fell in love, at least emotionally, with one of these Filipino girls, the daughter of one of these girls. And I'm like, You want me to be a father and a husband? You know, I'll have her crank out babies till menopause. Right? We'll make some Catholic babies for you right now. You know, and I'm like, is that what you want from me? And I didn't feel it, and I was like, no. Every time I watch that priest say mass and go back in the back and hear confessions, I burn to do that. I long to do it. And I kept praying about it, and that's when the Filipino women, they were like, you should become a father, you should become a priest, the young people need a priest like you. And I'm like, thank you so much. But there's no way I could do this. With my past, that's impossible. God bless the Filipinos, because then another one said to me, okay, so if you don't become a father, I have another beautiful daughter. I'm like, oh, Lord. No, right? Get behind me, Satan. You know, like, I'm good. I'm trying to focus here. So I kept praying, and that's when I sent postcards to religious communities, and some responded. We got in very interesting conversations. And then I ended up joining one called the Marian Fathers. They promote Divine Mercy and Our Lady, Orthodox, super solid. I would never make it in some liberal cray-cray group, really. And there's so many of those today, I'd just be like, y'all crazy. Right? If they start doing that, taking out masculine pronouns, describing God, I'd be throwing dishes at these people. You know, I'd be like, y'all are nuts, man. I came out of that craziness. And now you people are starting to do this crazy stuff? What's going on in your mind? You've lost it. You're basically in spiritual adultery with your God. You're following false deities and all the other stuff that you're promoting. That stuff is so prominent today. It's everywhere. Thank God that he brought me to this community that's solid theologically and filled with devotions and piety and all of that, and super Marian. And so I had to go through education, get my GED, get all the other stuff. It took 10 years. And it was torturous. Think about it. Like, if you fall in love, you can go through marriage classes in, months to a year and then get married? To be a priest, it took me 10 years. It was torturous. But I knew that this is what I had to do. So did that, got ordained in 2003. Now I've been a priest almost 20 years, and I travel the world writing books, speaking about Jesus, Mary, Joseph, the Rosary, all these things, calling out the wolves, because there are so many that want to devour you and your family and your marriage, your children. They're everywhere. And I know this is true. I know it is. I am 100% convicted. And my friends, you need to know this. Yes, you're at a prayer breakfast in McHenry County, Illinois. Great. But many of you, you don't fully get it. Again, don't panic. I'm not Padre Pio. But you know what I'm saying is true. You're playing footsies with the devil. And many of the things that you support, many of the things you promote, you got to knock it off. You have to live your Catholic faith. It's not easy. I mess up all the time. But there's right and there's wrong. There is objective truth. When you jack it up, go to confession. There's an endless amount of mercy for us. But it's time for us as Catholics to start truly living our faith and being willing to die for it. And you know, the future ain't looking too good. If you look at the way things are headed in the world, you better take a stand right now, because there's going to come a time when you might be before a firing squad. And are you going to say, oh no, I don't know him? Or are you going to say, Viva Cristo Rey, like the saints? Que viva. I'm not saying it's easy, right? Part of me is like, if they come looking for me, I'm like, I'm going to Baja, baby, right? I'll be on a beach somewhere. No, maybe. Pray for me, you know? It's not easy. But my role now as a priest with my brothers is to pray for you, to help you. And you need to pray for us. Priests are under attack today. Oh my goodness, they're under attack. We need your support. We need your prayers. We need to do this together. And so that's my promise to you.